Hindi as a language.
It's really, really remarkable. Are these people all teachers?
They all understand and speak English, sir. Ours is an English medium school. We are a Cambridge school. We are a Cambridge international school.
Wow. Will some of them put on their cameras so I can see people from halfway around the world?
Right, sir. So that's a very genuine expectation that Dr. Luskin has from all of us. Dear friends, could you please switch on the cameras?
Yeah, I mean, this is...
Oh, yes, there you see our Mayuri.
Finally, I'll join tomorrow.
I see Mr.
Namaste,
Aman.
sir. Good morning. Namaste, ma'am.
Namaste.
Wow. Wow.
So this is how we greet in India. In India, we greet with our folded hands and we say Namaste, which means I bow down before you.
Oh.
To the divinity in you. The divinity in me bows down to the divinity in you.
Wow.
Namaste, sir. Namaste.
So she is Nishita. I think she also wrote a few mails to you. She asked you to check if you would need a trial. The one with marketing head, she is Miss Nishita. Along with me, she was coordinating with you.
Wow.
So we have 1 more minute to go.
Yeah,
and I'm so glad to have you, sir. Right at 6 a.m. at sir's place. He is ready for us. Thanks to technology and thanks to such generosity of Dr. Fred. So you really are very kind and generous. I see practically what you talk about, imbibing in your life and reflecting through your behavior and actions, sir. Thank you so much. So with your permission, should we formally begin with our session? May I formally introduce you and okay. My dear friends from Ramratna International School and from the different other schools of India, my teaching fraternity, this is Dr. Jaya Parekh, the principal of Ramratna International School, extending a warm welcome to you and my gratitude to you for being present at the 89th Aadharshila talk. For those who are not aware of this platform, I would just like you to know, right at the start of the pandemic, that is in March 2020, we began with this digital platform of Aadharshila talks. Aadharshila is a Hindi word which means the cornerstone or the foundation of anything. Aadharshila talks were started with the aim of bringing teachers together from across the world, bringing speakers from across the world to speak to the teaching fraternity, to bring light into their lives, to give them guidance as professionals and as human beings, to upgrade themselves, to lift their morale. So friends, today's talk is something that we are so honored to have from the author, the famous author, Dr. Fred himself. I would like you to know that in our school, we keep talking of his virtues. We come from the culture, the Indian culture is known for embracing people, for not holding on to grudges and anger. And this is what today's topic is all about. When someone we care about hurts us, we sometimes hold on to that anger and resentment and thoughts of revenge. There is another way that we can adopt in our life, that is to embrace forgiveness and move forward. And we'll learn from Sir today how we can do it. Let me formally introduce today's Aadharshila speaker, Dr. Frederick Leskin. Sir is the director of Stanford Forgiveness Projects, also the co-founder of LifeWorks and Wellness Education, Health and Human Performance. Sir is a department chair in clinical psychology at Sophia University. At Stanford, Dr. Leskin teaches positive psychology, the art and science of meditation, forgiveness, wellness, flourishing, and the psychology of storytelling to undergrad and graduate students. He is also an instructor for the Stanford School of Business Executive Education Programs. Doctor is the author of the best-selling books, Forgive for Good, A Proven Prescription for Health and Happiness, and Forgive for Love, the missing ingredient for a healthy and happy relationship. His book, Forgive for Good, is the best-selling self-help book published on the topic of forgiveness. Sir's forgiveness work has been applied in veterans hospitals, churches, in resolving legal disputes with cancer patients, as psychoeducation, and in psychotherapy. Dr. Luskin's work has been made into a PBS Pledge Drive video called Forgive for Good. He has been interviewed numerous times in worldwide media, including the New York Times, Time Magazine, Los Angeles Times, Huffington Post, CBS Morning News, and many more. Sir's book, Stress Free for Good, 10 scientifically proven life skills for health and happiness, emerged from his 10 long years as a researcher in preventive cardiology at the Stanford University School of Medicine. His work showed the effect of enhancing stress management and positive emotion skills to help patients cope with congestive heart failure and arrhythmia. He also did some consulting work for Stanford hospital nurses in managing their emotions. Sir teaches stress management, emotional intelligence, and happiness skills to incorporate clients throughout the United States of America. His work focuses on the research-proven triad of a happy and healthy life, enhancing interpersonal relationships, creating a positive purpose in life, and guided practice in appreciation and other positive emotions. Today, we are going to learn in this interaction with Dr. Luskin that forgiveness is a learned skill. We all can acquire it. And let's learn from him how we can do it. And are there different types of forgiveness? How forgiving yourself is different from forgiving others? And why should we even think of forgiving? What are the benefits of forgiveness? And what forgiveness is all about? Is it about thinking of a different narrative? Is there a change of story which brings in a sense of forgiveness? So without any further ado and taking any further time, I invite Dr. Frederic Leskin, the 89th Aadharshila speaker, to take over. Sir, the platform is all yours.
Well, hi everybody. This technology still is remarkable to me. That I'm sitting here, it's dark out in the, I'm in California, and I don't know how many of you are there, but it looks like a good number of people from halfway around the world, and it's nice. I mean, it's nice to be able to.
So we are 55 as of now, and more would be joining during the talk. We are 55.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I have a long-standing interest, almost since college, of the relationship between spiritual practice, like religious virtues, and health. And when I was younger, there was no academic place for that at all. And there was no interest in any of the things that to me are normal or even make life meaningful. I've had personally a meditation practice since college. Study myself under, I guess, who was a Indian teacher, Paramahansa Yogananda. So that has been my spiritual guide for 40 years. And know the value of, I'm just going to say, human kindness, goodwill, decency, of which forgiveness is a piece. What makes forgiveness unique, though, is how hard it is. Because two things. One, it makes us recognize that we can be hurt independent of our actions, that we don't always cause misfortune or difficulty. I mean, I'm not getting at whether or not there's karma or anything where we might be responsible for everything. But I mean, in the non-normal human sphere, or in the accident sphere, we can't find often the proximate link between what has happened to us and our initiation of it. And so it makes us vulnerable. It makes us recognize our vulnerability. And human beings will do almost anything to avoid that. That they will do almost anything to avoid the pain of recognizing that they're in an uncertain world which they don't control, and where other forces in the world may not be benign for them. And that is a very scary place to be. And it requires a good deal of emotional maturity or spiritual maturity or something to be able to accept mistreatment without having to repay it with mistreatment. And forgiveness is that space where you accept your suffering, so to speak, or your difficulties without the need to make anybody else suffer. And so that's a profound statement. It doesn't mean that you deny your pain. And it doesn't mean that you offer like silly little excuses for everything. Yeah, they didn't mean it, or, because sometimes people do mean harm. And sometimes they make mistakes because they're careless. And sometimes they're just too preoccupied to even notice that other people exist in the world. So often we're up against the downside of being a human being and dealing with other human beings who are flawed and imperfect and all sorts of things. And forgiveness is digesting all that, accepting it, and choosing not to respond in kind. It's not always that you look at people's terrible behavior and say, that's okay, or they didn't mean it. You can recognize their profound failures without having to become them yourself. And this is a deep, deep, deep issue for us as a species. To not have to hide from human evil and difficulty and malevolence and just simple, like normal mistake making, but to not quite embrace it, but recognize that it's part of life. And then what do you do with it? Most of us act shocked when people mistreat. We act shocked. How could that happen? Why were they doing that? What's wrong? Blah, blah, blah. Rather than looking at life more honestly and recognizing that this is an actual component of our experience. From the Christian point of view, it's like, everybody has their cross to bear. Everybody. And it's how you bear it that is relevant. Because everybody's got one. And the Buddhists are really smart by talking about like old age, sickness, and death as the reminders of your impermanence and your vulnerability and your almost lack of real existence. Like that we come through this life for a short period of time, and it's not easy. And what do you do with that? So one of the qualities that often happen is when people are hurt, they act surprised. How could that happen to me? Like, what did I do? What then can go deeper if we're observing of life is that some of this happens to everybody. And so you can cultivate compassion. Or you can turn inward and make it just about you. So you have that choice. Life happens, it's hurtful to me. I can open my heart and expand my reach and see, wow, this shit happens a lot. It's not just to me. Or you can constrict and make it all about me, or all about my group of people, or all about my tribe, and ignore the suffering that's everywhere. That's one of the first decision points that we all have to deal with. Did my partner lie to me? Maybe. But do people lie? Oh, often. You have to be able to hold both. One, to deal with the situation that you're dealing with, but two, the wider lens, to deal with your life itself. So the woman who invited me, the principal person here, made a mistake this morning. And she asked me to be on this call at 5 a.m. my time. And it turned out that it was 6 a.m. An honest mistake. Literally honest mistake, because what happened is the time zone here was changed because we went to something called daylight savings time like 2 days ago. So it was 5 o'clock when she looked to tell me what time to be there. And like Saturday, it shifted. So now Monday, it's 6 o'clock. So I got a couple of urgent messages when I woke up. We need to shift it. But here's where I had to undergo a tiny bit of forgiveness. And I brought it to the principal's attention, and she responded appropriately, immediately, and the issue was resolved in no time at all. But what I noticed...
I'm once again, sir, I'm very sorry for all the trouble that you had to go for this 1 hour difference, and also that it didn't immediately back to me.
Nothing So what happened is I woke up and I was told that I needed to do it an hour later, which in itself is no problem. But what I noticed is there was no apology in the email, that there was no how it affected you. And I thought to myself, well, what's the teaching here? Like, I'm teaching about forgiveness. You're all educators. What do we need to learn from this situation? So I wrote the principal and said, yeah, I'll give the talk, but you need to apologize. Like, that's your part of the bargain. My part of the bargain is to talk. And she did so immediately. The point being that when let's say I'm offended by that, I'm allowed to say something. I'm allowed to say, this isn't right. Here's how you rectify it. We all have that freedom. We all have the innate capacity to say, this isn't right. Please try to make it right. This is part of our response, not just to be a victim and not just to be helpless. So that's one teaching. Second, you have to identify what the problem is. The problem was not that an hour late. There's no way she could have known any of this. So that wasn't the problem. The problem was the lack of an understanding of how it impacted me. That was the only aspect of this was a problem. And an apology takes care of that like this. So as a person who was minutely hurt, like, I use that as an example of, well, here, I can use this now as a teaching story. You know, I asked for what I needed. I described what it was that was wrong by me. She resolved it. It's over. It never needs to come up again. There's nothing there. It was wiped clean. That's what apology and forgiveness do. They wipe it clean as if it never happened. She never again has to even for a second think that she's in my debt. I don't hold her in any way as anything but a normal human being who did absolutely appropriate. That's what apology and forgiveness do. That's why they're so important. Because as human beings, we will constantly make mistakes. And as human beings, our mistakes will constantly bump up against other human beings. And if we want to go through this life without creating grudges, this is what's needed. The simple, when it's my bad, I'm sorry. When I'm the one who the bad was done to, I release you. Like once I let you know what the issue is and it's heard, it's over. This is the power of forgiveness. It's over. There's no, debt chart. It's not like, and some people don't do this, but I'm telling you what a healthy response is. It's over. It's not like I think to myself, well, I better be careful when people from India ask me to talk because they're going to make mistakes, which is what happens when you don't forgive. You build up grudges, you build up prejudices, you build up all sorts of problems in your head. You see what I'm saying? You build it up, and then you have a list to carry around of how the world was unkind to you. There's no end of unkindness, no end. But we have the capacity inside of us to process it, to recognize what was wrong. Now, let's say that there was nobody to respond to. Let's just say something had happened after my talk and somebody had made a mistake like that and I had no way of getting in touch with them and they had no way of making it right. So then it becomes entirely an inner thing. The forgiveness is just mine. And it would have been the same process, except there's nobody external to do it to. It would have been for me to ask myself, well, what was wrong with this? Like, let me get specific. Let me really ask myself, where was the boundary? What was the problem? Not just because what we do instead is we tell them terrible people or we call them inconsiderate or insincere, but that doesn't help anybody. That's just our nastiness. But if we ask ourselves, what's the actual problem and what's the harm done to me? That's what we have to process. What's the problem and what was the harm done? When you're clear about that, you can share it. When you're not clear about that, most of the time we either just do attack, which is how dare you, you're terrible, this is awful, or retreat. I can't cope, this is terrible, nobody loves me. We do attack or retreat, but neither of those are that helpful. Now, that doesn't mean that if the offense is a lot more than just a missed apology, like somebody really harms you, then it takes some time to get to what was wrong and how did it harm me, and that's called grief. For normal, healthy people, a situation like this, the grief could be 30 seconds. Me sitting there trying to figure out what the actual problem is. Once that's identified in me, then was there any harm done? No. Is there a solution to it? Yes. That's what the processing is. And then after practice, you let it go. You share what you need to, you ask for what you want, or you write it down so you know you were wrong. You keep the piece of paper, you look at it, you know you got the whole thing out, or you call somebody and say, let me tell you about the inconvenience I just had, and then you're done. The key piece is we have to be done. We don't want to carry these grudges around, because if we carry them around, if we carry around the little ones, we prime the pump for when a bigger one comes, we way overreact. So if you can't tell somebody easily in the small inconveniences that, here's what I see, here's what happened in my mind, I'm sharing it with you, but I'm not holding it. I'm sharing it, but I'm not holding it. I'm not going to bring this up again 2 months from now. It's like if you're married, you don't say, remember 2 years ago when you lied, to make them feel bad 2 years later. Forgiveness is how you maintain relationship. That's how you do it. You have to forgive to maintain relationship. You also have to apologize to maintain relationship if you've erred. Like those are the circular things. If you want good relationship, when you err, you apologize. When they err, you forgive. But communication in relationship is essential. So I could have stuffed it, showed up to this thing with a chip on my shoulder, and that would have helped no one, including me. Nor did it educate her about an error she made, which she could easily change and maybe learn something. This is how we can hold things from escalating. You share. You get truthful with yourself, and then you let it go. I can't make, that's the piece that we struggle with. Let it go. What I'd like to do is I would like to lead everybody in a short meditation, just to give a moment of like how we learn some of this, and something that will help understand how we see forgiveness. So all of you out there, I would hope that you're willing to close your eyes for a moment and just do a short guided imagery with me. It will not take long, but it's important because I want to shift from what happened to me to a much wider lens around forgiveness. So if you'd all be willing to put your technology away for a minute so you can unfocus. I mean, you don't have to if you have your headphones on, but if you're looking at your phone or staring at the computer screen, doing 3 things at once, put that away and just simply close your eyes and allow yourself to relax for a moment. And the key piece to that, when I say relax, is to relax your shoulders so that you're not constricting your body, and relax your breathing so you allow your diaphragm to work unimpeded. So that when you inhale, your abdomen expands. And when you exhale, your abdomen contracts. This is the simplest meditation instruction, but I'm doing it to ask you to please relax and trust enough so that when you inhale, your abdomen gets bigger. And when you exhale, your abdomen contracts. And then what I'd like you to do is simply bring to your mind's eye an image of someone you love. I'd like you please to bring to your mind's eye an image of someone you love. And what I'd like you to do is, if you can, take that image and generate a feeling of love in your own heart towards this person. Just hold the image and try to feel almost in your heart. I mean, not the physical heart, but in that part of your body. See if you can feel affection and care. And then just let that go. Let the image go, let the feeling go. And take a breath and allow your eyes to open. So what I have learned and what we have learned teaching this is that whatever that place is in us that's centered and loving, that's where forgiveness is found. That's where it's latent in us, that it's available to us. What happens is when we get upset or when we're surprised by bad behavior, we take ourselves out of that space and make that space hard to find. And then we blame someone else or the past or something out of our control for why we can't get back into that space. That's actually what a grievance is. You have taken from me my capacity to live in my heart. And I can't forgive you for that. That's the actual process. That you have stolen peace of mind or love or hope from me. And because I don't know how to get back in there, it's not up to me, I feel helpless. And I need you to do something. Apologize, do something. But it is a position of helplessness. And when the hurt is bad and people keep on reminding themselves about how bad it is, like, I'll never forgive what that person did to me, or I'll never forgive what that country did to my country, or I'll never forgive what this tribe people did to my tribe of people, then you armor your own heart from opening back up. And you're the one who puts like steel around it, not the event. Because we have the potential to be safe enough inside of ourselves to open our heart back up to life. And when we do that, it's called forgiveness. Like, I've stopped putting a lid on my good nature because of something that life did to me. And now I've made a decision that this is a part of life, and I've learned not to close my heart down for too long because life was difficult. Now, there's that grief piece is essential. So something that happened to me, the grief piece here could be a minute, 30 seconds. But if somebody really harmed me, the grief piece could be 3 months. You need to grieve. It's essential to have the bad feelings, to struggle with them, to feel sad, angry, scared, lonely, ashamed, whatever. Those are essential human qualities that allow us after a while to rebalance. The key piece is, though, what we teach is to remind people what balance is. So we've worked with, families who have had members murdered in political violence. We've worked with survivor families of the 9/11 attacks. We've gone to Sierra Leone and worked, with people walking around with machine guns when they were 10, and the most horrible stuff. So I'm not making any claim that this is easy. But the point is to get your heart back and not keep on giving it away to your pain or your losses or the ways that life has been difficult. It's reclaiming it. So for me, my heart was, let's say, damaged for 30 seconds. But I recognize that I hold that, not externally. But I allow the negative feelings to be there for a while, so I learn from them. You learn, well, what was wrong? What did they do that's not okay? You have to know this about yourself. And once that's again clear, then you can let it go. But you don't go directly from hurt to peace. You go hurt to grieving to peace. Hurt to suffering to peace. Anger is a very helpful emotion, appropriately offered. So if your partner cheats on you, you better be angry for a while, otherwise you're not fully human. But you don't want to stay angry. And you don't want to put them in the bad human category so that you can stay angry for years. That's what you don't want. But to not get angry because they behave badly is ridiculous. And there's something called spiritual bypass, where people try to make believe they're so spiritual that they don't feel like normal human beings. That's not spiritual. Spiritual is like the full range of human emotions with an overarching control. But to try to make believe like you're too holy to feel it before you're too holy to feel it doesn't help anybody. It just makes you uptight. What's useful is to give ourselves permission to feel our humanity, with knowing that when we feel it and learn from it, then it will be appropriate to release it. Because I don't need it anymore.
So may I ask or say something? So when you say that you experience something which you do not like, and in such a scenario, you should forgive those people instead of holding anger and resentment. Does it also mean that you
No,
continue to allow?
If somebody says, if somebody does something you don't like, you feel the dislike before you forgive.
Yes, sir. My question is, does forgiving mean that we are open to such behaviors even in the future? Do we allow the people to repeat those same things? Or suppose if we want to disconnect with some people, it's also a part of forgiveness or not?
If it were only that simple that you controlled other people's behavior. So let's say you work with people who are annoying, right? and you have an assumption that you either fight them or somehow you just forgive them, that it's okay that they behave badly. What I said when I started was, you have to know what was wrong so you can deal with it. And that's part of grieving. So with my little example, I was very clear what the issue was. It was only about an apology. It wasn't a character attack. It wasn't my life was ruined. It wasn't anything, but it was this simple thing. I was clear about that. I expressed it. Let's say you work with somebody that you share what's your issue, and they don't do anything about it. And then you share it again, and they don't do anything about it. Then you have a question of basically the serenity prayer. Do I quit my job because it's so bad? Well, maybe. Or do I have to accept that this difficult person is part of a job that I like? Maybe. Do I have to learn new skills, maybe, as to how to talk to them? Maybe. Forgiveness doesn't stop your mind from working, but it stops your heart from closing. That's the. It stops your heart from shutting down just because somebody might have done something that's not what you wanted. The definition that we use of forgiveness is making peace with the word no. It's making peace with the fact that in this life, you often don't get what you want. And when you don't get what you want, after being upset about it, it's important to also open back up. But forgiveness is making peace with the word no. So, no, I won't do what you want. No, I'm going to drink alcohol even if you don't think I should. No, I'm not coming home tonight even though you tell me to. No, I'm not going to behave. We're often confronted with the world saying no to us. Forgiveness is making peace with the fact that the world will say no to you, so you can let it go because it's common and normal. What you want to get better at is your reactions to getting no. Let me give you one more moment. Let me give you one more meditation moment, because so much of this is about how big our own heart is and how clean we are inside of ourselves. So let me give you one more meditation moment. And again, I only have an hour with you, so I'm keeping these short. But let me ask you one more time to please close your eyes. Let me ask you to please close your eyes. And take a couple of slow, deep breaths into and out of your abdomen, just for a moment. And really relax your belly. This is how your body knows that you're safe. So even if painful things have happened 10 minutes ago, you can relax your belly, take a breath, and your brain will know you're safe. The only thing your brain checks out as to whether you're safe is whether you're breathing slowly and deeply into your abdomen. The yogis figured this out thousands of years ago, and and science hasn't fully caught up with them. But then I'd like you to ask one question of yourself. In like the last 48 hours, who's been kind to me? You want to ask yourself that one very simple question. In the last like 36, 48 hours, who's been kind? Has anybody said a nice word to me? Has anybody helped me? Has anybody like forgiven a mistake? Has anybody encouraged me? Done my laundry? Helped me with food? Look for kindness in your world. Slow the tape down and look for kindness. And pick one instance of kindness and from your own heart say thank you. And say thank you sincerely for your kindness. I mean, this is just inside of you, but offer thanks. And then let that go. And take a breath and allow your eyes to open. So the reason I did that simple practice is when we think about our lives, we have a nervous system that's designed to show us problems and difficulties first, and to focus on problems and difficulties. It's there to help keep us alive, but it doesn't make us happy. And it makes us ever alert to people not doing what we want or focusing on our own failures. That's the way we're wired. It makes a lot of mistakes to keep you safe. It misperceives the world often. One of the things that we forget when we're talking about forgiveness is how many yeses we get. So when you say to yourself, okay, here's the issue. There's two people at work who I can't stand. They're just terrible. But I work with 47 others that I like. So then you have a different perception of the problem. If you just focus on how do I deal with the difficult ones, your life gets heavy because your body is tight, your muscles are tight, and your heart's tight. Now, sometimes that's absolutely necessary. So every now and then you need to take yourself in hand and say, I have a problem. I have to deal with this. But if you don't also notice the 47 people who you like to work with, or who are cooperative, or the people when you get home who love you, then you will have a very distorted view of the people who are not what you want. And so you will bring too much charge to it, and you will make them too powerful. And so what we don't realize is our perceptions coming in influence how we react. So one of the things that we now understand in our project is when something goes wrong, which happens, one, it's somewhat dependent on your state of mind, how much wrong you see. But two, we're actually judging our whole life. And this is something that makes people uncomfortable. Let's say something benign, like, you're at a restaurant or a store and somebody screws up and doesn't give you the appropriate change and accidentally cheats you at a $10 or whatever the money source is where you live. Here it's dollars. But let's say they cheat you at a $10. When you're getting upset about that, if you do, you're really looking at your whole life. You may not know that, but you're asking yourself the question, have I been loved enough? Have I been given enough? Have I experienced enough abundance? Have I seen enough beauty? Have I had enough goodness to handle this negativity with emotional stability? Most of the time we answer no. I haven't been given enough by life to be gracious at this moment. But that actually is a gratitude problem, not a forgiveness problem. And we spend way too little time being grateful. And when you practice gratitude, you become more forgiving immediately. Because you then see things more clearly. You actually see the world as it is. Some research here in the United States was that 96% of things that happen to human beings are positive. And that's broadly defined, but the sun shines and the air is breathable and, people mostly do nice things. And even in traffic, almost everybody drives okay, but we don't see it. And because we don't see it, we're off balance. We don't perceive the world accurately. So forgiveness is making peace with the word no, in part because you recognize how much yes you get. So here, I don't know anything about the socioeconomic classification that those of you attending are at, but here, where I teach, just about everybody that would attend through Stanford or something like that is somewhat middle class. So everybody wakes up in a bed, has running water, food in the refrigerator, transportation, their kids go to school. So I would remind them that they wake up in the morning at the top of the food chain as human beings go. So that gives you a lot less to complain about as your day goes by if you see it clearly. So if somebody says, "How's your day?" and you say, "Well, I woke up with food in the refrigerator, running water that was clean, there's medical care if I need it," I'm going to say, so far my day's been pretty good. There's still about 800 million people in the world who go to bed with no food and another billion without good water. So, I'm going to say it's not bad. Then you become more forgiving when you see things clearly. Then you recognize also you have a choice as to what you pay attention to. So what we come to understand with forgiveness is it's another aspect of our emotional intelligence as we navigate this world. When somebody clearly crosses a boundary or clearly errs, it's absolutely appropriate and useful to bring that up. Absolutely. in as healthy a way as you can. So like assertiveness is a good skill. Like, no, I did not appreciate that when at the last meeting you insulted me. No, that was not okay by me. That's very healthy. What's not healthy is not saying anything. And in every conceivable next meeting, you sit down and steam's coming out of your ear and you say, boy, that person's such a jerk because they insulted me. You keep that going for the next 2 years. That's not healthy. What we're actually forgiving is our own judgments. That's what we're forgiving. We're forgiving our own qualities of mind that keep us from our own heart. And then we blame the past or of our behavior or other people's behavior why we can't fully see what a beautiful day it is. So I'm going to stop in a moment, and if you want to ask me a question or two for the last few minutes, but let me just, let me give you the analogy that we used years ago when we brought people from Northern Ireland to us from both sides of the conflict who had had children murdered, which is about as awful as it gets. We brought them to a window of our building at Stanford, and we had them like go like this to the sunshine. And the sun came in, and it was, they had come from Belfast where it was like, 9 degrees or whatever, and California was 60 degrees. But we had them open their arms, feel the sun, and say thank you. And then remind them that the same world that killed your child gave you the child and gives you the sun and the moon and everything else you have. So you're going to have to live in the world that has both beauty and ugliness. That's what we all have to learn how to do. And without doing that, this is the piece that I'll end at, you can become bitter because your body and brain will hold on to the negative because that's the way they're wired. But you have to choose to bring in the positive. And that's the choice. It's the choice to find beauty and let go of ugliness when it's past its date. That's the forgiveness thing. I did
So
see
there's a
one
question.
question that was
So there's
put
a
on
question
here.
in the chat box. Excuse me, sir. There's a question in the chat box. Should I read it for you?
I saw it like about forgetting.
Yes. Certain acts cannot be forgotten. So how do we get over it?
Well, let me talk about how smart that is. Forgiveness is not the same as forgetting. What forgiveness is remembering differently. You never forget. You shouldn't forget really bad things. Yes, you forget tiny little things like, for me, whether the email I got was perfect. Hopefully I'll forget that by tonight. But if somebody harmed you, what you have to change is how you remember. You change from remembering as a victim and remembering with contempt to remembering with grace and remembering with an understanding that you took what life had to offer and you persevered and survived. So you remember your strength. It never, ever, ever is forgiveness the same as forgetting, only on the small issues. On the bigger issue, it's actually coming up with a different story to talk about it, one that is healthy, not limiting.
So we have Mr. Gregory who probably wishes to speak. So Greg, sir, please unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am. Namaste, ma'am. Good morning, sir. This is Gregory from Ramratna International School. For example, I'll take my personal case. If I have forgiven somebody, so the person who's been forgiven, what advice would you like to give to that person and vice versa? I hope my question is clear.
It's a tricky question, because if somebody harmed you, but they don't believe they did, like sometimes we just see things so differently. You may want to keep your forgiveness to yourself. It's like sometimes, like certainly if you're married or in a close partnership, it's like better to just say, we're going to agree to disagree on this. I love you. We're just never going to see eye to eye on this. That's great. If it's somebody that you can talk with because you have a shared understanding, then it's important to have that forgiveness thing with kindness. So I forgive you. That clears me. But I want you to know, I don't think you're a terrible person for doing this. You're just a human being who did something that wasn't right. I felt bad about it for a while, but now we're clean. You have to emphasize that now we're clean. We don't need to go through this again. You don't need to feel bad. This is slates wiped. When you can do it that way, it's a gift. When you do it too early, or you're not really full of it, then you tell people, you did this terrible thing, but I'm such a great human being that I'm not going to hold you to it any longer. And everybody knows you don't mean it. So you want to make sure you don't share it until it's safe, until you know that you're really true about it. In terms of sharing it, it's really good to ask permission. So is it okay if we talk about this, rather than jumping in and deciding for yourself that? So those are some of the parameters. I hope that's an answer to Greg's question.
Thank you, sir, for that insightful thought. Thank you so much.
Very, very welcome.
Friends, do you have any more questions? Please feel free. So I need to ask you if you have a few minutes to spare, if the participants have any questions.
A couple minutes, sure.
Okay. So do you have any questions from our participants? Or if you wish to type in the chat box your thoughts or questions, that also is absolutely fine. So I feel 90% of your statements were like quotes worthy of being put on the walls that we look at on a very regular basis, because these are reminders. What I loved, my key takeaway is, look at those 96% good things. Forget about, don't focus on the 4% which may not be according to our wish. Let us focus on the yeses rather than the no's. That's the key takeaway for me, in addition to many others. Would any of you like to also express what's the most impactful takeaway for you, friends?
I mean, sir had many sentences and statements what he said, and each needs a deeper understanding because we never thought in those lines. And if we re-listen to this audio, I mean this section, we will definitely have to think on different sentences and try to work on those lines. So excellent session, sir. Thank you so much.
Agree with you. And so one very profound thought that came out is gratitude. The sense of gratitude can lead to being more forgiving. I think that was simply this. And yes, Ms. Rainey has mentioned this. We must not become like those who hurt us. I think there are a number of lessons for us to mull over, to get to the depth of each of those and try to imbibe, try to practice in our life. We would still have many questions surrounding this
You
understand.
know, what's interesting to me is because of these technologies, I now talk to people, coach people from all over the world. And, you know, I have clients and now in Canada and in London and stuff. But the universality of it is sobering. You know,
Right.
that no matter what color your skin, no matter where you show up, you know, what your religion, no matter what, you know, where you come from, we're all struggling with the way human beings behave. And there's no easy answer. The work that we've done, again, it's like when all else fails, you might as well forgive them. You know, it's like, because you're trying to preserve your own peace of mind and happiness. That's really what it's about. So anyway, I thank you all. It was really lovely. I so appreciate being able to communicate with people all over the world. It's remarkable.
So we thank you, all of us here from Ramratna International School and all the other educators from India, for sparing your time right in the morning. And Sir is a committed. So, you know, people look for his appointments to have him speak to people, conduct sessions, workshops, and he has been so kind. That shows his simplicity and generosity that he agreed to deliver this talk just for a simple normal school, which is like there is nothing that makes us a platform that Sir would be looking for normally. But he proved that his passion is interacting, communicating, sharing his thoughts, his research, and that in itself is very inspiring, Sir. We wish we imbibe this generosity in us and this kindness in us.
Thank you all very much. Oh, it's your evening, but
So
I'm
there's a
just
short video for you, Sir. A very short video expressing our gratitude to you.
I'm just getting up. So thank you all very much. That's great. Look at this.
It seems Sir also had to get ready to report to probably his college for his classes, and still he managed this time right in the morning to meet us, to speak to us. So thanks to Sir, thanks to all of you, all the participants, for bearing with the change in time, in the change in the timings of Aadharshila talks, being present, being involved, and appreciating all the learnings that we have received from Dr. Luskin. So thank you, everyone. Let us all develop and nurture this quality, this virtue of forgiveness. And before that, to be able to apologize, to be able to realize when we make mistakes and seek forgiveness. So let's continue on this path, on this journey together. Thanks to everyone. See you next Monday at the 90th Aadharshila talk at RRIS. Another inspiring personality. See you.
Thank you so
everyone.
much, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Kapoor.
Thank you so much.
Bye, ma'am. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
ma'am. Thank you so
Mr.
much.
Khan.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much, ma'am.
everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank
See
you.
you